If you can't clearly talk about a problem statement before you start writing a proposal, then you should still be in qualification stage.
When you listen more, prospects, they reveal everything. The trust amplifies, budgets and the urgency, it surfaces naturally.
Closing is a commitment. It's not convincing in two ways. One, you're not pushing them just for the sale.
If you're not talking to the right people who are open to being converted or open to working with you, you can have 20 and come out with nothing.
A lot of people think they build something really amazing, people will come.
If people can't understand the patterns of what helps them succeed and what helps them fail, where does that lead you? It's not going to be growth.
If you're spamming people in your company, this has an impact on the company brand and how you perceive them, but also on you personally. Are you encouraging people just to spam out and do mass outreach?
What would you see, the biggest sort of pattern from your experience, especially in the professional services world, Riggs, on what does a partner need to have in place in order to build that revenue side of the business?
So a client acquisition, it needs to be predictable, Dave. So whether you're B2B, B2C, professional services, you name it, you need to be able to have a predictable process in place. Otherwise, you don't know where your next deal is coming from. You don't know how to forecast. So you have to have that structure there. And I think for any sort of sales process, it comes down to, a foundation of a few pillars. But I guess for me, I'd love to understand, from that perspective, what do you think those pillars should be for any business to be able to achieve growth?
Yeah, it really comes down to these three core pillars. So know really who you're going after. Then it's about how do you reach these people consistently? And then once you've got them on your calendar and you're talking with them, how do you convert them? Right, this is the big three. So know who you're going after to a high level of detail. How do you reach these people? And then how do you convert these people? Right. So I think you need to know those three foundations before you go beyond that. And I guess, Riggs, you'll see this, quite a lot within the space. Where do you see, companies fall flat during this process?
The first one is, knowing your client. For example, if you think you serve everyone, that's going to be your biggest issue, right? And that goes back to my analogy about kids on a soccer field. Like ball goes that way, people go that way. It's just distraction. We talk about this a lot in Coach Pilot as well. Like we have to stay focused. We have those segments that we're focusing on, our ideal client profiles, which we'll talk about in episode 2. But I think that if people try to go for too many types of businesses, it's more distraction than anything else. So stop trying to be everything to everyone would probably be where I see the biggest mistakes.
But it is one of the hardest things as a founder, as a leader, even as a seller, to really focus on, one niche. It's a challenge that we work through every day because you get a great opportunity comes through, a bit of that shiny paper syndrome. You're like, oh, this can open up $1 billion revenue. Do we look at it? But then you never go deep on any space.
Yeah. And I think that do you want to play at the superficial level? No. What I find, and you spoke about it before, is focus, it's probably and I'm sure we can both unpack this about how focus actually creates more opportunity, right? So yes, allow things to come in. We've had a few great inbound opportunities or opportunities through networking where they saw the connection for Coach Pilot, and I didn't recognize it at the start. But then, other parts of that are when we have that focus, it does bring more opportunity. I think that it's like a manufacturing line, right? So manufacturing, if you have the right message to the right same core group, like you said, personalization, you will actually be able to create more meaningful conversation. How do you see it with that focus?
Yeah, look, focus is key. And focus comes from various things, right? It's depending on the amount of projects you work on, the amount of things that are happening in your life, right? That has a big key because it's all mental space. Focus then creates clarity in everything that you do, from the decisions you make on your product or service offering to your messaging, to how your team go out and sell, to everything that you build. From a sales enablement perspective, the PDFs, all the little bits and pieces, it's crystal clear as to who you're targeting, and you know. And I think one of the biggest things is the mental space. It's not something that's, you could clearly see, but it happens when you are in the shower and you have a light bulb moment on, this would be a great idea for the product. When you're just, out with the family or doing something that's non-relating to work, and then an idea pops in your head, that's your subconscious working, because you've got real clarity and focus on what you're building and what you're working on, rather than having, okay, we serve 20 different markets, or I've got this side project and I'm doing this and X, Y, Z. Your brain doesn't have that sort of bouncing around activity. It's got that mental clarity. And it's almost like an AI tool that's working in the background, right? Your subconscious, it's powerful, where it is. When you're asleep, it's working based on the problems that you went through that day, what you spoke about that day. And then all of a sudden you just have this light bulb moment, when really it's just a series of events that have happened, and at that right time, and when you had that mental space, bang, the idea pops up. And I truly believe you can't have that activate if you're trying to work on too many things, or trying to sell to too many people, or have multiple projects on at any time.
What strategy you use to really start building your pipeline and self-generating that pipeline?
Yeah, so when I sort of took over that service offering and started being responsible for the sales and the business development, what struck me pretty early on was, yes, a program comes out and it's very niche in what it's looking for, but if you're looking for that needle in the haystack, 1 month out from that program closing, you don't have enough time to find them. So very early on, I thought, okay, what I need to do to be successful here is to really build that warm pipe of potentials. And then when the program opens, quickly match somebody in my kind of holding tank with the particular program.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, there was some very obvious things. So like, is that company operating in one of government's target industry sectors? So that was like clean energy, manufacturing, med tech, all of those industries that government's looking to support. But another thing that I came to quite early on was that, you needed somebody, and people say this all the time about sales, you need someone with their light on.
Yeah.
So you need that person who's thinking, I want a government grant, but also I don't want to do it myself. I'm not looking to cut corners. I'm looking to apply for a grant and to win it. And that kind of person wants an advisor, and I am that advisor. So it was really about trying to find those kinds of people, or people and businesses.
Yeah, so this is great. So what I'm hearing is you really spent time thinking about, there was some firmographic component about the size, revenue, location. But then you even started to think about the psychographic stuff, how they might behave, what their feeling is towards working with an advisor. And so when you built that, let's call it an ideal customer profile, when you built your ICP, how did that then help you sort of go to market and start those conversations?
Yeah, and I think that's really important in professional services, because people are not looking to purchase a service, the conversation is redundant.
Yep.
So I suppose how I took that to the market was to review that sort of initial discovery call approach, or like the BD conversations I was having, because I used to, spend quite a lot of time looking at the guidelines and trying to match the guidelines to the project and the company. Are they eligible? Do they have the right project? And that's great for the person I'm speaking with, because I'm validating, yes, you should apply, or no, this is not going to work for you. But it didn't work for me from a sales perspective, because we'd have that conversation and they might say, oh, great, I'm a shoe-in for this. I'm going to go and write it myself. Or I'm a shoe-in for this, and that person over the road, offered me a lower rate, or I've got a friend who does it. I'll go and do that.
This is so important, right? So your inbox is full of all this stuff you're never going to open. And in research from CSO Insights, of those same buyers who said they would meet earlier, 68% of them said there was no difference in the way people were showing up.
Yeah.
How they were communicating, what their messaging was, probably what the tech they were offering was. It was all the same. They saw no difference. So people, if you're trying to sell, you've got to show up in a way that is differentiated. It's got to be different from how everyone else is doing it. Is it in the medium that you're doing it? Maybe it's a voice message. Maybe it's a video. Maybe you get to know the person on LinkedIn or somewhere else first.
Yeah.
Or your message has to be so compelling. And there are research, science-backed ways to help structure and articulate value in a way that does capture attention.
Yeah.
And that's what people really need to focus in on.
And I think that goes to the second point that you were talking about there is like the bucket where, it's someone that you know and trust. Like how does, I guess for you would probably see this as well. How do you, if I was trying to sell to you, how would I then be able to show up over time to get to know you or you to get to know me and my values for then you to take that? Like what does that look like? Is it mostly on social media? Is it email? Like how do you kind of experience that?
LinkedIn is huge for me. Like I think we're all converts. Like the power of LinkedIn and what that can be done for sales is huge in terms of you getting to know someone and for also you sharing what value you can bring, right? If you are showing up on LinkedIn, you are sharing insights that are relevant to your target audience. That person may not be commenting and messaging you saying, hey, I want to put in an order, but they could be following you and understanding the kind of value that you can deliver.
Yeah.
It shows your expertise, your level of seriousness, what it is that you can actually bring. So as salespeople, I think that is so huge to be able to do that and specific to the audience who you're trying to target.
I'd love to this is a really good conversation. So on the flip side to that, what if you're sending this and thinking, because this comes up for me, am I potentially insulting the person that I'm sending it to by telling them stuff to say, hey, this is what I think, this is my point of view on the data. Am I potentially telling a person that, hey, you're doing something wrong? Because that's just my counter to that. I'm always conscious of how I position that message to not insult, because we're also selling to status and ego, right?
Yeah. People buy from people still,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And most decisions are still emotional.
Yeah.
And then people go and get the data and the facts to back it up and say it's logical. So this is so important. But what is really kind of key when you take that, oh God, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. The key point when you're sort of making that outreach is, so at times someone will already know what you're going to, the insight. Like, I know that already. But the aim is if you can get to them earlier, if you can come with a compelling point of view. When we think about, sometimes people have limited thinking, right? There's a box, there's a way of doing things. But if you can bring some different kind of point of view and perspective and do it before they're aware of it or before your competitors or someone else draws it to their attention, then it puts you in a different position. And you can't always do it first and you can't always know. But to your point about kind of insulting them, you're not calling their baby ugly, right? The other way of doing this is a common challenge we see in the industry or a flaw others in your industry are taking is XYZ. You're not talking about them. I'm not saying, Luigi, your problem is this. I'm saying, hey, what I see in others who are like you is this challenge.
Yeah.
And when you position it that way, it then like, oh, okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one who has this problem. So then there's more of a willingness to talk about it.
Pardon the interruption. I'm Luigi, one of the co-hosts here at Revenue Leaders. You'll notice we don't run sponsors or ads on Revenue Leaders.
This show is free. Our goal is to help you grow revenue and build your sales system that you can rely on. We do have a favour to ask though.
If this episode gives you one clear idea that you can use, do these two things. First, share it with one person, a founder, a revenue leader, or a rep who wants to grow their business. Just one. That's how the show grows.
Second, grab free access to our vault over at coachpilot.com/vault. Inside, you'll get the frameworks, templates, and short courses we use with clients to help them scale pipeline and increase win rates.
So the deal is simple. If you get value, share the episode with one person and go to coachpilot.com/vault to get the tools to put this into action. All right, let's get back to it. I'd love to break down with you like what you think some of the biggest mistakes are in that sales process that end up leading to lost deals.
Yeah, I love talking from experience because I see this a lot as well. I've been, victim of, and this is after reviewing a lot of demo calls of those that we coach, talking too much, right, and not listening to the prospect on the call. Another one is pitching too early. Now, this is hard, right? And what I mean by hard is that you might hear something from the person you're speaking to, and you go, "Oh, we can so help you here. I can solve all your problems. I'm your best thing since sliced bread." And you get so excited that you start to pitch too early without really listening to them and understanding what it is. And then you try to prove your value. So whether it's a service or product, you might overshare, you might show too much because you think you can solve everything and beyond. When really, what we've seen the best sort of, calls happen is when you really truly listen, you hear the one or two key things that they need to solve, and you showcase that, whether it's, via your services or your product. Say you're doing a product demo, you could be just showcase those two key things that they need to solve, and then just lightly skim over everything else and say, and we've got everything else in here, but these are the two key things that, from what I heard.
So the more you kind of chase, I think for me, it just doesn't work. Like if a seller kept pushing to me, I kind of back away. Whereas if someone is like, this is what you should do in this stage, I don't want to rush to proposal. I actually want to know how to solve it. I think that those things really matter. And what we've also seen, and from say Gong, for example, they've actually been able to track that when sales reps actually start talking about budget and pricing up front and earlier in the process, they're more likely to win the opportunities. So when you're actually giving that ballpark, it helps both parties. That sets a level of expectation, knows how to move forward before we even go to that proposal stage. And then I think it's about timing. I realized this the other day when a seller tried to push a product on me and said, it's the end of the quarter. Like if you sign up by Monday, and it was like a call on a Friday, if you sign up by Monday, I'll give you like a 5% discount. And it's like, well, I'm not ready to buy. So you pushing me into your little bucket, I didn't want to buy off of them. And in fact, you and I went to a different vendor after that experience as well.
So I say, I'll call these a bit of red flags, right? So if they can't really describe their problem, that's a red flag, because then your response is going to be just as vague back to them, and they're not going to feel that it resonates and hits because they're not really sure. That there's a clear indicator to me that they're not sure what they're looking for, right? So then I'll just go back with a question and this is another one from the Luigi playbook is, what sort of brought your attention to, join this call today? What triggered you? Because that might be something that they saw that could then lead you through to the next question.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, Dave, because red flags that I see as well, and this goes on both sides. So if you can't clearly talk about a problem statement before you start writing a proposal, then you should still be in qualification stage. And that goes, so if you're a buyer, you need to be able to clearly articulate, this is the problem that I have within my organization that I need help solving. And then from a seller side, it's like if you can't write the 2 or 3 sentences of the person you're selling to and saying, you as an organization are experiencing X because of Y, therefore you need to do number 1, 2, 3, then you still need to stay within that qualification stage. Or if there's too much back and forth and you can't get an answer, then maybe they're not ready for something either.
And look, the mind shift that professionals need to, employ into their life is that disqualifying is not losing. It's leaving room for better opportunities to come into your world and to focus on better opportunities that are currently in your pipeline. And focus improves their outcomes, right? So, Regan, if someone is listening to this and they want to take one or two key points to implement today, what would be your top ones?
So, great question. To wrap up is make sure you ask really good questions during that qualification stage. Don't confuse interest with intent. Make sure that you're understanding like the real problem. But I think from there, if you get that qualification right, then that leads us to scale, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in our next episode and final episode of this series episode 6 is how to scale your business.